So listen to this, because this story is not about a crybaby, not about a stat patter, and definitely not about a player hiding from responsibility. This is the story of why Bruno Fernandes looks the way he does, and why he plays the way he plays. For almost a decade now, Kevin De Bruyne has been crowned the king of playmakers. But scroll social media and you'd think Bruno is football's villain. Arms waving, face twisted in frustration, screaming at teammates, forcing impossible passes like he's trying to bend reality itself. But here's the uncomfortable truth people ignore. Bruno has to chase perfection. Because historically, his teammates have converted his chances at nearly twice the rate he has himself. He knows the margins are thin. He knows only the cleanest pass survives. And when Manchester United need a miracle late on, when chaos is everywhere and structure is gone, there's only one man still trying to pull something out of nothing. Bruno isn't reckless. He's desperate because he's usually the last functioning system left. Yes, he gives the ball away more than almost any elite midfielder on the planet, but zoom out. His numbers look like something we all created as kids on Pro Evolution Soccer. Chance creation through the roof, progressive passes everywhere, shots, goals, assists, leadership, chaos. What if Bruno isn't overrated, but simply trapped inside the most dysfunctional giant football has ever seen? Anyone watching their club rot from the inside would snap. Anyone pouring their soul into every match while teammates drift through games would scream. And people forget this part. Bruno didn't arrive in Manchester at 19. He was 25 years old. This wasn't a step in a journey. This was the journey. For him, football was never guaranteed. It was always 1% chance, 99% survival. Even as a child, the odds were against him. At 10 years old, Porto wanted him, and his parents said no. Not because he lacked talent, but because they didn't own a car, and Porto wouldn't send their van. That could have been the end. Instead, Bruno knocked on Boavista's door and convinced them he was worth the drive, worth the fuel, worth the effort. And just as he entered his final academy years, disaster struck again. Boavista were dragged into a massive match-fixing scandal, dumped into the third tier, fighting bankruptcy instead of developing talent. Bruno was invisible, forgotten, overlooked. Until, at 17, one last Hail Mary changed everything. Through a family connection, a scout from Novara in Italy's second division took a chance on a kid who had never played a senior game. Suddenly, Bruno was alone, 1,000 miles from home, the only foreigner in a strange academy. Paperwork issues meant no salary for 8 months. He survived on €50 a week sent by his mother, barely leaving his dorm room. Every night he called his girlfriend in tears, begging to quit. And before she even turned 18, she packed her life into a suitcase and joined him. That decision saved his career. Everything clicked. By November, he was training with the first team, speaking Italian. By February, with Novara sinking toward relegation, Bruno became a starter, and everything flipped. 3 losses in 20 games, promotion playoffs, a club president calling him the Maradona of Novara. Giants started circling, but Bruno refused the bench. Again. Instead of Milan or Juve, he chose Udinese, chasing development over fame. And there, under Antonio Di Natale, he was sculpted. Di Natale didn't just train him, he raised him. When to strike, when to wait, when to risk it all, when to breathe. Season after season, he poured everything he knew into Bruno, like a master passing down a craft. As if to say, you're different, and I won't let you waste it. And that's why Bruno plays like this today, why he forces passes others won't attempt, why he refuses to hide, why he demands more. Because he knows what it's like to almost lose everything, it's ice, and he refuses to go quietly ever again. Honestly, it felt like destiny that Di Natale took Bruno under his wing, because he saw the same late bloomer fire in him, the fear of wasted talent, the urgency of knowing time doesn't wait. And nothing proves that bond more than the moment Di Natale publicly snapped at him in his final season, saying Bruno annoyed him precisely because he was better than everyone else, and sometimes didn't realize it. That wasn't criticism. That was frustration from someone who knew greatness when he saw it. And fittingly, the day Di Natale walked away from football was the same day Bruno walked away from Udine. Next came Sampdoria, the famous number 10, the honor, the history. And yet, it still felt like running in place. His best moments that season didn't even come at club level. They came when a player who had never played senior football in Portugal somehow captained their under-21s. So when Sporting came calling, Bruno didn't hesitate. Home wasn't just calling, it was demanding him back. But as always with Bruno Fernandes, the road was never smooth. What followed in Portugal was dominance bordering on absurd. Just 22 days after his Sporting debut, he was already in the senior national team. That first season, 3 Player of the Month awards, 6 Young Player awards, a League Cup trophy, 36 goal contributions, a domestic cup final, 1 single win away from Champions League qualification, and then chaos. March 15, 2018. One of the darkest days Portuguese football has ever seen. 50 masked men stormed Sporting's training ground armed with knives and metal bars, destroying facilities, breaking into the dressing room, and physically attacking players. It wasn't football anymore. It was survival. Bruno escaped, called his wife immediately, and told her to take their daughter north to Porto where it was safe. Football stopped mattering. 5 days later, Sporting played the cup final looking like a team already broken. They lost to a relegation candidate, and then the exodus began. One by one, stars tore up contracts and fled. Gelson Martins, William Carvalho, Rui Patricio, Rafael Leão. The squad collapsed overnight. Sporting was sinking fast. But Bruno Fernandes didn't run. Despite being the league's best player and having offers lined up across Europe, he stayed. While everyone expected Sporting to crumble, Bruno refused to let it happen. What followed was one of the most outrageous individual seasons Portuguese football has ever seen. 32 goals, 18 assists, breaking the long-standing European record for goals by a midfielder. They made him captain because there was no other choice, and wearing that armband, he erased the humiliation of the year before, winning both domestic cups, beating Porto head-to-head, and dragging Sporting back into the Champions League. By season's end, the praise reached ridiculous levels. Executives claimed his value had jumped tenfold. The president compared his importance to Ronaldo at Real Madrid. Teammates openly begged him not to leave because without him, the club would collapse. But Europe still hesitated. Manchester United waited. Tottenham stalled. Sporting held firm. Bruno won the Nations League, made the team of the tournament, came back and dropped 29 goal contributions before January just to remind everyone what they were ignoring. And finally, United had no choice. With Pogba injured and their midfield collapsing, they pulled the trigger. What happened next wasn't hype. It was impact. Bruno arrived with United sitting 7th, drifting, lifeless. And within weeks, everything changed. Player of the month, goal of the month, instant leadership, instant authority. The lockdown paused the momentum, but the moment football resumed, Bruno picked right back up like nothing had happened. Goals, assists, responsibility, pressure. Because by then, this wasn't about talent anymore. It was about survival, legacy, and a player who had spent his entire life refusing to let circumstances decide his ceiling. And somehow, this was only the beginning.